The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triversity Talk. I am Stephen Bloomer Teague.
And I am Wendy Stuart Kaplan, and thank you for joining us on Thursday night on this beautiful spring day, Stephen. My gosh.
I'm wearing short sleeves, and I'm
wearing flowers.
I'm sure April will be abysmally cold, but until it is, I'm going to...
Well, yeah, we're going to be punished for this nice weather, but I think everybody will agree March is definitely going out like a lamb.
Amen to that. Thank goodness. And wow, what a Tuesday we had. Our town hall was a hit.
It was really amazing and a very much needed panel. And for people that don't know, there is a recording of it on the Triversity. Did you put it on the website or it's on our Facebook only?
It's on the YouTubes.
Or no, YouTube, right?
Here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find that. It's the audio, not the video, because we figured you didn't want to see everyone's face. So, check it out.
It was really wonderful.
We got a plug from a national organization that said they hope more centers do town halls like that. So,
yay for us. Pat on back.
Pat on back, yes. Well, if you're here on YouTube or Facebook, give us a like or a love or any of that good stuff. We would definitely appreciate it. A subscribe or two. We'd love it all. But anyway, let's quit talking about YouTube and town halls and get to tonight's guest, Wendy.
Well, because I'm ready to burst over tonight's guest. I love this guy. He is the Norma Desmond of upstate New York. And I bet y'all can't guess who it is, but he's a journalist. He's a photographer. He is a performer with a very intense acting background. And he's got a gorgeous personal assistant by the name of Dharma. I'd like to introduce you to the one and the only Jonathan Charles Fox. There she is.
There she is. And this is all you're going to get from her.
That's it,
so
right?
You're getting her right at the get-go.
Hi,
All she
Dharma.
wants to do is get away from me. Go.
There you go. Well, it's okay. So many people know you, Jonathan, and so many people know Dharma because she's always with you. So thank you for introducing her tonight. You know, I should have had something to say about her, but I had so many descriptions about you. There was no room for Dharma on the bill.
Well, honestly, she is the star of the show. She always has been. And she continues to be right up to like this very minute. And I can tell you, just recently, I was in a grocery store nearby, and a woman, you know, everybody's doing their mask thing and their distancing and being very, very polite and respectful of everybody else, a smaller grocery store. And this woman sees Dharma in the cart. She's with me all the time because she is my service dog. She is, for your viewers who wouldn't know, which seems inconceivable, she is Dharma the Wonder Dog, and she is a seizure alert dog. And of course, you're very familiar with her story.
Yes.
So this woman kind of timidly approaches me and keeps her distance, gray hair and a mask. I don't know who she is. And she looks at me and she points at the dog and says, "Is that Dharma the Wonder Dog?" And I said, yes, it is. And so she turns around for her husband. You know, Morty, come here. It's the dog from the newspaper. It's the dog from the radio station. And he looks at her, and they're older than you, Wendy. And he looks at her and he looks at me and he said, "Is that Dharma the Wonder Dog?" And I said, yes. And they're like, "Wow, it's the dog from the newspaper." I said, "I'll give you $1 if either of you can tell me my name."
And they didn't know.
Crickets.
Well, we know that.
This is the
I'll
story
let
of my
that
life.
comment about that they were older than me. I'll let that just slide
Yeah,
right
do
back.
that. Well,
Hi, Jonathan. So, you are so well known. Everywhere I've gone with you in the upstate New York area, everyone knows you. They do know you, Jonathan, and they know Dharma. And I mean, you've really put yourself out there. You host events. You're on Thunder 92 radio all the time.
I'm going to call that Thunder 102 and 104.5.
Thank you.
Country
Thank you
radio.
for the correction.
I'm
And
sure
then
they're listening.
you have your column in the River Reporter, My Humble Opinion, which everyone has read for the longest time. I'm going to start with the very basics. How the hell did you turn up in Sullivan County? Because you and I went to college together.
We
And
did.
nobody knows that. And I ran into you in front of a ribbon cutting ceremony in front of the Stick It In. And we had Johnny and Roswell on this show a few weeks back. And I'm looking, this guy looks really, really familiar. And I'm like, holy Toledo. We did a show in SUNY Binghamton. And it was you and I. We didn't have lines in that show, I don't think, or maybe only one or two.
I don't recall any of those years, really.
I don't even recall the show. But I mean, these were, let us, for lack of a better word, very humble beginnings. So, how did you end up upstate? You've been all over.
Well, it took me a long time to circumvent and wind up back here. I didn't originate here, but I was born about 90 miles west of the Catskills. And I started performing at the tender age of 5.
Wow.
My grandfather was a big band leader. And before he got married and settled down with my grandmother, he was a big band leader and toured with Peggy Lee. I mean, he was a big deal.
I love Peggy Lee.
And he toured with a then almost grown up Shirley Temple when she took her nightclub act on the road. So he had show business in his blood. And I think I was about 5. He recognized a little maybe spark of something in me and handed me a microphone.
Wait, does that mean you were precocious and out of control at 5 years of age?
I certainly wasn't out of control. He handed me a microphone and plugged it in and said, do something. And at the age of 5, I think I sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Get out.
And everybody was like, oh, and I was hooked. So I started out pretty young and got very involved. And yes, we met in college. I was a theater major at SUNY Binghamton. But I worked a little bit back and forth when I was, before I graduated from college. And then when I graduated, I went to New York. And
yeah, but weren't you a child actor? Also, you had done some stuff also before we met in college.
Yeah, I had. A little bit because
so I remember everything about you, Jonathan. I know every little details. So come with me on this train ride of your life. So after college, did you come into New York City? And
did. I went into New York and I was fortunate enough to get some work and get a little bit of commercial work, some voiceover work. I became the voice of Tic Tac. Remember Tic Tacs? Oh, they still make them, don't they?
Back in the day,
Stephen wouldn't know. He's far too young. But back in the day, their ad campaign was put a Tic Tac in your mouth and get a bang out of life. So they figured they could just pay one person to say bang and be an old lady, be a baby, be a grandma, be a
you
cat.
Said bang.
So they hired me. So I'd go into the studio and they'd play that little jingle, put a Tic Tac in your mouth and get a bang out of life or bang out of life or whatever they needed from me. 3 weeks, you're done for a year, quick in and out, nobody gets hurt. So
how many different ways did you have to do it?
Oh, over a period of time, I'm going to say hundreds.
That's a lot of bang for your buck. Pardon the pun.
It is a lot of bang for your buck. And I had one of those trees. Remember, Tic Tacs came on a standing tree that you just pull one from at the point.
Now that I don't remember.
I had one of those trees because they really treat their people very, very well. So my point is I worked a little bit here and there. And I think I was doing Taming of the Shrew at I'm trying to think where we were. No, it was New York. It was Shakespeare. The Shakespeare companies all met up in what is now Hell's Kitchen Acme Repertory Theater was performing there.
I remember Acme Repertory. Wow.
I was one of the founding members of Acme. So I was doing Taming of the Shrew. I think I was doing Taming of the Shrew, and I got some fun reviews because it was a Roaring Twenties version of the show. And I played Tranio, the most thankless role in the show. He's on stage more than anybody else. Stephen is nodding his head like he's a Shakespeare expert. That's great.
Yeah, Stephen's impressed.
Tranio's role in Taming of the Shrew really is to just come out and tell the audience what just happened because they're just speaking Shakespeare, So somehow he makes it more manageable for them. So I got some fun reviews doing this Roaring Twenties version, and it came to the attention of people who were in New York City, looking to cast a show based on a brand new movie called Fame. And so they came to see me. They saw my nice little review, and they said, well, let's go see this kid. And they came to see me, and they I guess liked me for a minute. And I had an agent, and they got me to go out to LA for 2 weeks and do a small role. Norman Benzer, the Jewish nerdy oboe student on Fame.
Oh my God, that's a stretch.
And I wound up staying for about 30 years.
Get out.
I really didn't come home. I had a husband at the time, and I called him and said, pack everything up because we're moving to Hollywood, baby, which really was not the point ever. So
you were in Hollywood for 30 years. I didn't realize that.
I wasn't working that whole 30 years because I grew up and stopped playing teenagers and nobody wanted to hire me anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a really long time ago. So I had to reinvent myself, and I took a few years off because I could. And I took a few years off and said, what am I going to do? And I said, the only thing I know, nobody wanted to hire me. I was the Pepsi Light kid. I was the Atari video spokesperson. You're like, oh, you're that funny looking kid from Atari. So
right, but when you're not that little kid anymore, when that little cuteness, I mean, I'm sure you're a handsome guy, but you're not that teenager bubbly role that you could fit into. It's important to bring this out that nobody wants you anymore. So then what did you do?
It was hard. And I was never the lead character in anything ever, even in shows in Binghamton where I shone like a ring you're buying retail. And I thought I had the world by a ring in college because I was the star of everything at some point. At Binghamton, and then I had to hit the real world and realize there were 1,000 people just like me. But I always played I was a character actor, so I always played what happened was when I went out to LA originally, I got cast as a nerd, which I wasn't thinking at the National Shakespeare Company. I wasn't thinking nerd is the way I'm going to go with my career, but I got typecast in that role, and I played it a lot and got hired to do it a lot, and that's who I was until I stopped doing it, and I became a writer.
Okay, but let's just backtrack a little here. Yeah. You became a writer. Well, I'd love to know what the process is, as I'm sure everyone else. How did you do that? Did you have writing skills before? Had you written some things, or was this an epiphany that you had?
You know what? I mean, it's appropriate that we're on this show. I think some of the gay population is watching it, but I kind of came out of the closet in the writing world.
Interesting.
In that I lived with a writer, my partner at that, the one and only I've ever had, J.P. Duffy, was a great director in New York. And we got together in New York. We moved out to California together, where he was a writer, director, what have you. And he was working on a show called The Facts of Life. Remember them?
The Facts of Life. Yeah. Facts of Life.
Yeah. So The Facts of Life was a big part of my life for a really long time, and I still have coffee mugs all over Norma Desmond's Catskills Retreat. And because JP was on the writing staff, I played the pizza delivery boy on and off for years. I'd knock on the door and make my $700 or whatever it is and say, here's your pizza, and go away. But I always wanted to be a writer, and he was the writer, and it was a problem in our relationship. He didn't want me writing.
Well, because he's a writer.
Because I guess he felt threatened by that. But I was doing it even then when I was 20-something years old. I was writing. And I wound up with the opportunity to write a script or two here and there because of his work. And I wrote a script for The Facts of Life. That kind of stuff pays pretty well, let me tell you. But
I love that you wrote a script. This is one of the first scripts that you wrote, and it got picked up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you make it sound so easy. That's incredible.
I'm sorry?
That's incredible. You make it sound so easy. I mean, you did it and it got picked up.
Well, you know what, Wendy? It's not as glamorous as it sounds by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And I've always said the same thing. You can't swing a dead cat in Hollywood without hitting an actor, a producer, a writer, what have you. You just can't. I've swung a dead cat. Trust me, I hit somebody. So I listen, I was fortunate, and but I had a lot of doors slammed in my face also, because when I stopped working as a performer, I said, I don't know what to do. The only thing I know how to do is write about this world, entertainment, arts, entertainment. That's all I know how to do. And I actually started writing, in my humble opinion, which is the name of my column, even to this day, in the award-winning River Reporter. My very first In My Humble Opinion was more than 25 years ago.
Get out. Wow.
Yeah. So I started doing that, and I wrote some plays that nobody wanted. I wrote screenplays that nobody wanted. When the great strike, the writer's strike happened,
I remember that.
I got work because I wouldn't cross a picket line, but there was a lot of non-union shows cropping up, and it was the birth of reality shows. And I created a couple of out of my own little imagination.
Okay.
I created a couple of reality shows.
We want to hear about those reality shows. Like, what was the name or the gist of them?
Well, the first one I did was quite sensational, and it was called Transformation House. It was definitely before its time, because I'm going to say it was 1992, 93 maybe. It was called Transformation House. It was a reality show about pre-op transgender folks.
Wow.
You're blowing me away. I can't believe it.
I mean, that's right around the time in the real world when all that drama went down with, I forget the two people from Real World San Francisco. And to do a show like this, when we're just talking, AIDS is the conversation. That's incredible.
Yeah,
I'm not really proud of it. It was quite sensationalistic. I had to work with a lot of people, and it brought out a lot of things in me that I'm mildly amused by, but I don't love. And we had 12 pre-op transgender male to female folks who had not gone through that ultimate transformation. We put them all in a house together.
Oh my gosh. It's like Big Brother, like the show.
We had a lifestyle coach. We had a lifestyle coach. We had a shrink, a psychologist on staff. We had a doctor, a medical doctor. We shot in Miami. We had a medical doctor on the show, on staff, who was going to be a part of the whole process. But it was my job to entertain folks with this reality show. And so I make no apologies, but I'm not proud. So I sat at the producer's table and said, get me an old one, get me a young one, get me a fiery Latina, get me an angry black girl.
Well, casting. You were the person that was.
That's how it's done. And
but
I said,
it's
get your vodka brand on board, and let's get these bitches drunk and have them throwing high heels at each other, which they did. They did. And at that time, none of this was covered by any kind of insurance. And the last girl standing, the last woman standing, got everything paid for, all of her surgery, for the big reveal. Again, not necessarily so proud, but.
So it was a competition? I mean,
yes, it was a reality competition show. I had people from Big Brother and Survivor working with us.
Yeah, because that's what it sounds like. The minute you said it, I'm like, my God, this is a premise for Big Brother. I'm glad, though, that the winner was able to get her surgery paid for. When you first said nobody had insurance, I thought you were going to say people were throwing stilettos at each other and got injured.
Well, we had people throwing stilettos. We took them to a bar, a really seamy bar that I loved in Hollywood, California, called La Plaza. And it was a drag bar, a Latina drag bar. If I was often the only Anglo in the room, and we liked it that way when I was young and footloose and fancy free. But they did these fantastic drag shows with people, the drag queens who took themselves very seriously, but a little bit from the wrong side of the tracks. And the little backdrops would kind of roll down and go clunk, and they do Christmas spectaculars and Easter spectaculars.
Get out.
It was a fabulous place, and we brought all our girls there to mingle with the finest set. So I did that, kind of the low end of my reality show programming, and I did a show called The New Explorers, which for the History Channel, and they told me it was the most money they had ever spent on anything ever, and invited me to
For
the
you,
take
Jonathan. You don't go cheap.
It was highfalutin. I don't go cheap. Listen, Little Mary Sunshine at Binghamton was my, thesis. That was my performance thesis. We spent a fortune on that show.
I'm sure.
We did. New Explorers was a very high class show, and we had teams of 12 teams of 2 each, and these people had to follow the original route of explorers. It was supposed to continue season after season. Of course, we started with I forget who, and they had to wear all the clothes that were only available then, and use materials that were only available then to do their challenges and get from one place to another. Lewis and Clark's Trail. They had to go from one end to the other.
I love it.
Help
The
me.
New Explorers. I thought it was fantastic, but History Channel did not.
But you bring up a great question. Well, I think that is a brilliant premise. I'm a member of the Explorers Club, and I can tell you exploration now is so hot. I think that the concept of having a show like that would be so interesting. Maybe I'm thinking, Jonathan, the timing was off. This was what, like late 90s?
Yeah. This is the story of my life.
I mean, you definitely, you're a visionary, Jonathan Charles Fox.
Yeah, that's me.
Your time, really.
I'm a visionary. I'm a vision.
Norma Desmond.
How's my lighting? Good.
You're fine.
So Jonathan, is this actually Norma Desmond's house that you're in right now?
You know what? I haven't had it made yet, but I'm having a pillow embroidered that says the only thing missing is Max and a dead monkey. I will tell you, and maybe I would give you a tour of the house, but it's not in your budget. Trust me.
We know that.
Yeah, it's definitely not in your budget. But I like older things, and everybody has their own taste level. I love some of the things I have, but I once had a guest. It's interesting to talk to you two on this particular show, because I don't often consciously or even subconsciously bring my lifestyle necessarily to the foreground, but I see gay flags behind you two, so I will tell you that I've been known to date gay people from time to time.
The word is out there.
I married him.
So I once, years ago, had a guest in my home in California, which was called the Dollhouse, and had many of these things that I'm surrounded by now. I had a guest over who I did not know very well. Let's just leave it at that. And I gave him a tour of the house, and he was looking around. He was a little overwhelmed, I think, by all my fabulous stuff. And he saw that it was a 1-bedroom house in Santa Monica, not on the water. But he said, well, so where does your grandmother sleep? I said, my grandmother?
Woo!
What do you mean? He said, isn't this your grandmother's house? I said, no, dude, I own this stuff. This is my stuff. My grandmother kind of gives you an idea of my what do they call it? Design aesthetic. Old lady, I guess.
Well, I've been to your home. No, it's just I like older things too, and I never like to put it into an old category or anything. It's classic. We like things that are classic.
Well, even the stained glass behind me is 150 years old at this point. I like older things, not men.
Now, I was going to ask, you like older men?
No, I don't like men, period. Not really.
Me either. Me either.
I can sense that about you.
Well, you have that in common. So there you go. So I still haven't figured out, Jonathan, how you got from California to Sullivan County. There's a big gap there, and I need to have that part of your story filled in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I started writing, in my humble opinion. I was doing plenty of writing at that point, 20 some odd years ago. And I was, because I'm from the upstate New York originally, from the Binghamton region, I was vacationing up here constantly, usually about twice a year. I had a friend up here very nearby, and I'd come out and go to the city and see a show, and then come up here and hang out in the woods. camping is my number one passion. That's a piece you're missing out of all this, Wendy.
Wow.
I spent the last 30 years, because I grew up on the Susquehanna River, thinking I was Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, all watching them kiss each other. I grew up in a very natural environment. I went to camp, and I've always loved camping. And it happens that I have actually camped in a tent in every state in the United States. And it took me more than 30 years to accomplish that goal. That's how much of a nature lover I am. So as time wore on in California, before that, my time there was done, I found myself going more and more and more to the mountains and to the woods to camp, because I still could. Now I don't think I could sleep in a tent. But back then I wanted to all the time. So I was coming here constantly, and I realized I was spending more time here visiting or in the mountains above Los Angeles than I was in LA itself. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go home. And everybody looked at me. I had a life. I had a couple of friends. I had a world. I had done some stuff. And everybody looked at me and said, are you crazy? What do you mean you're going home? And I said, I want to go live in the woods and just write books and write. I just want to write all the time now. And I want to do it in the woods. And there's no time like the present. So I picked my sorry ass up and moved lock, stock, and barrel. Norma Desmond stuff all came with me.
Get out.
I've been here ever since.
What happened to the husband, though?
To work for a newspaper. That was never.
But what happened with the husband? Was he still in the picture? Was he?
He is no longer active in the business, as we say. It's been 30 years next month.
So you like left him in LA. That's what I'm asking. You left him and you did this on your own.
No, he's underground, and I did this on my own.
Okay, so he went into, because I was going to ask you, what you're talking about is a jumping off point, an epiphany, a jumping off point.
Yeah, so when he died, everything changed.
Catalyst. Yep. Yeah.
And I wasn't happy. And it was later in life to be doing something like making such a huge move. I wasn't happy. And I knew that I had to do something extraordinary, something big. And so I said, I'm going to move to the Catskills. I didn't even know what I was going to do, honestly. I had no idea. I knew what I wanted to do.
It takes a lot of guts.
It does.
I don't know. I had a truck just like I do now, and I threw everything in it. And my dog at the time, Liza May, and I threw in the truck, and we drove cross country and camped out all along the way. And here we are 1,000 years later, and I'm Jonathan Charles Fox.
And you're here on Triversity Talk. See, this is all very interesting because as much as I know about you, this whole part of it had a big blank spot. So you reinvented yourself, and you did it in the Catskills, which is great.
I did, but to be very serious, Wendy, I skip ahead and say, I've worked for every newspaper in the region. One of the newspapers came after me and said, "Oh, we read your blog." I had an old blog 1,000 years ago called "Working Without a Net," and somebody read it here and contacted me and said, "We'd love you to work for us. We'd like you to write for us." And it was somebody at the Democrat. And I said, I don't see that happening. And she was like, "No, we really would like you to do that." I said, no, I don't think so. And they kept saying, we'd love you to do that. What would you want to write about? And I said, well, I guess, is there any theater? I mean, what's going on here? And that's how that started. My point being that I'd been doing that for years in Los Angeles, writing about the world of arts and entertainment in Los Angeles. And getting paid better than I do to this day to do it, but nobody gave a damn.
Right.
I moved here. I didn't know anybody was going to give a damn. I moved here. This happened with the newspaper, and I started writing for this newspaper. And my first column, I said, "Hi, this is who I am. This is where I came from, and I'm going to go see plays and tell you what I think about them, express my humble opinion. And if you'd like to talk about it, let me know." So, like week 2, I was in Narrowsburg, New York. I was walking down Main Street, and a piece had come out, I think, in the River Reporter at that point. I was already at the River Reporter by then. And there was a knock on the window of the Main Street Cafe at that time. And I looked, and there was somebody doing this. So I, did one of these and looked behind me. They're like, "No, you, come here." So I said, okay. And I walked in, and it was some guy. I don't remember. He's probably watching now. Undoubtedly, he still stalks me. And he said, "You wrote this thing about this play. And I totally disagree with you." And I said, "Oh, that is fantastic.
That's great.
Let's talk about it." And it was that moment that I understood that everything was going to be completely different here. And honestly, as real as I can be with you, connecting with the community and realizing in that moment that somebody was reading it and somebody did have the opportunity to knock on the window and say, I disagree with you, changed my whole world. It changed everything. And here I am, you know,
right.
all these
Because
decades,
nobody
decades later.
gives a damn in LA, okay? Even as a writer, no matter how good it is, it's so much more superficial. You were one of everybody there, right?
Yeah.
You come here and you were working without a net, leaving a comfort zone, and you're here working without a net. And not only that, you brought out something that I tell people all the time: the amount of arts that is accessible in what I call the tri-state, right? New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, but the more rural parts, which we're all connected to, it is really phenomenal to me.
It is.
It really is. Narrowsburg, when you came here, was just Narrowsburg. Now it's like a major, it's besides being a fabulous town, it's become like a major center. I mean, and you have to know in your heart of hearts, Jonathan, you've contributed to that.
Well, I don't know about that. In the wheel, I absolutely am. I love this community, and you know, the River Reporter itself covers 4 counties, 60 states, 60 communities, 2 states. We're called the River Reporter because we're both in New York and Pennsylvania, which is a great connection for you and I as well. So it gave me an opportunity. I was with the Democrat. My first paper was called the Town Crier. Did you ever hear of that? It's long gone. Well, the Town Crier, that got absorbed by the Democrat. Then I was at the Democrat, and then the River Reporter came knocking on my door. And this is all ancient history at this point because I've been with them a very long time.
Forever, right?
But my point is really that because I'm an arts writer and photographer, and we cover such a wide swath, it gave me the opportunity to really be exposed on both sides of the river to the arts community, which is so vibrant, so active, so diverse, so amazing, so impressive, so awe-inspiring to me that I was able to sit down and say, look, people, this is happening. That's my job, is to bring it to everybody else's attention. When somebody says to me, there's nothing to do there, I say, oh, clearly you don't read the River Reporter. Right. Because there's always something to do, COVID notwithstanding, in, as you said, the tri-state area and the region itself. And you know, I mean, your house is in Milford, isn't it? What a spectacular town that is.
It is. Milford is great. You know, just in terms of getting more theatrical productions, you know, there's a bunch of us that are hoping to, you know, push that agenda forward. But I see, this is how I feel. Tri-state, we need to join all of our communities together because it makes it richer for everybody, you know? And, oh, you're bad. You were been performing. Okay. And I never knew about it. You started doing shows, and I want you to talk about these, you know, 1-person shows that you're doing and why you started doing them and some of the stories behind that. And I haven't gotten to see you yet, but this summer, God willing. Yeah.
Well, I can't say for sure, but somebody did reach out to me and ask if I would be available this summer, one of the major theaters in the area. And I told them that for them, I would certainly be available. And of course, you know, money talks. But you know how that all started. A lot of people for a really long time would say to me, don't you miss performing? Now that I'd stepped behind the scenes, I decided I'd rather write words that actors are going to say than be an actor saying them. I decided that a long time ago. So it comes up frequently because I do have a little bit of a history. And if you watch Nick at Night, you can find me doing that geeky, nerdy thing on shows like Different Strokes, One Day at a Time, The Facts.
I love it.
Jeffersons, you know, all those Nick at Night shows. I played the pizza delivery boy on every single one of them at some point. And I made a couple of really bad movies, and I was in a couple of really decent movies in small aspects. So people would say to me constantly, don't you miss performing? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean I don't like talking. Nobody said, do you miss talking? I would miss that. And there was one fantastic monologist. That is a word, a monologist.
All right, tell us what a monologist is.
Yeah, a monologist is somebody who, you know, I often say when I'm doing my one-man shows, I say, think of it as a conversation between friends where I do all of the talking. So a monologist, Spalding Gray was my... Yes,
I get it.
I idolized Spalding Gray. He was a monologist.
Yes.
He would walk out onto a stage with a table and a thing of water and a glass and sit down and tell the audience a story and really keep them interested. And they were true stories about his life. And I remember a long, long time ago saying, oh, if it weren't for Spalding Gray, I'd be doing that. Well, Spalding Gray sadly is no longer active in the business. He jumped off the Staten Island ferry.
Right.
Because I've heard that people in the entertainment industry are really secretly miserable on the inside and have a lot of demons. And Spalding Gray had his, and he jumped off the ferry, which was very, very unfortunate. But it left a little gap. It left a crack in the wall for Jonathan Charles Fox. And I said, I'm going to take up his torch. Not that I could ever dream of being a Spalding Gray, but I loved what he did. So I started doing it. And I do, as you said, one-person shows. I'm a man. I'll call them one-man shows. And that's exactly what I do. I go out and sit with an audience generally for about 90 minutes without an intermission. That way,
wow. I know you love that because you can talk uninterrupted for 90 minutes.
Well, a lot of people have told me and said, I didn't know how you were going to do it, but there you go.
Oh, I would say
so I have done a number of them over the years, and I found that I really, really enjoyed it. And again, it really is about connecting with you guys. So I take a little nugget of a theme. A good example is when I did Dirty Laundry. I was folding laundry out in Camp Fox here by my fire pit one day. I brought all the laundry, all my T-shirts I'd washed, and I was folding them, sitting out by the fire by the picnic table. And I said, oh, I remember this shirt. I did such and such at this time.
Oh,
I was in Vegas when I got this. I said, oh, there's a story about like each and every one of these shirts. Maybe I could do a show because that's how I roll. So I did. The Delaware Valley Arts Alliance in Narrowsburg, New York, booked me to do a show called Dirty Laundry.
That was like 2 years
ago. My laundry, and I hung it up on the line, and I told stories about the various times in my life that those shirts represented.
Brilliant.
So that's kind of what I do. The very last one I did was at the Forestburg Playhouse, and it was called Born in a Trunk. And I told all old theater stories to the audience that came and sat at on the lawn of the Forestburg Playhouse in a very, very COVID-safe manner and listened to me talk their ears off for a little bit over an hour, maybe a little bit more. And I really enjoy doing that because I'm not acting, I'm not performing.
Of course.
There's no script and there's no memorization. I just sit down and hope for the best.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is that rehearsed or do you just kind of,
It's not rehearsed, Stephen. No, it's really not. That's what I usually come up with a very thin line. That's what I said to Franklin Trapp when he said, will you do a show for us? I said, how about theater stories? He said, that sounds great. That's what I did. I was very fortunate because Franklin put me in touch with an incredible accompanist. I said, I think I'd like to add some music to this. So Franklin put me in touch with this incredibly talented guy whose family named Chuck Vassallo. And he and I don't know each other at all. And we had a conversation like we're having now. And I said, you know what, Chuck, I might talk about this. I might talk about that. Maybe you could tickle the ivories. And because he's a Broadway.
Tickling the ivories.
Musical theater guy. And he said, sure. So we got together for about, I'm going to say maybe a half an hour before the show. And I said, I might do this. I might do that. Do you know this from a chorus line? I might sing it. I might not. I don't know. And Chuck said, great. And I said, so talk to me. Give him a mic. And we sat down and did it. And people came up to us and said, how long have you guys known each other? I'm like, I don't know, about 25 minutes. Why do you ask? He was that good. And
and you're that good too. I mean, that, when you take two people that are like that and put it together, it doesn't matter if they have any history at all. It's a vibe. It's a connection.
Well,
Jonathan,
honestly, the terror of walking that tightrope when you go out, the curtain opens and you go out and you don't really know, Stephen, in answer to your question, I don't really know what's going to go down. I have a very loose idea in my mind and that could go out the window very quickly. You don't know. That terror is also the best part, for somebody like myself, anyhow. Mm-hmm. I don't want to know what's going to come out. And I do Q&A. That's my favorite part when I do my shows, because then I have no idea. I get cards from the audience and I read them out and I answer them.
Q&As are always my favorite thing when I'm performing also, but for the same reason. So I have to ask, are you planning, we're still going to have to be careful this summer. Are you planning some things with the Forestburg Playhouse or the Delaware Valley Arts Alliance that people can go to and be entertained? We are craving entertainment, Jonathan.
Well, I'm in conversation with a number of organizations. Nothing is written in stone, so you'll be the first to hear. And I did tell you earlier, I would kind of like to do something with you guys with Triversity.
And I made a mental note, so did Stephen. Absolutely. think it's a great idea. So yes, we are going to talk.
I would enjoy that. I would enjoy. Well,
Okay.
you know, I'm kind of a fan of the gays. I mean, I'm okay with them. I'm not that. You know, it is
Are
what
the-
it is.
I wanted to ask you, you know, when you moved to Sullivan County, what are we in the beginning of 2000 or the end
Yeah.
of? Okay, see, I'm good with these timelines. We're in the beginning of 2000. What was the situation with LGBT? And I'm not even adding the Q into it at that point because the Q wasn't there. I
had BLT because I really don't know what the letters are of the alphabet. I just keep saying letters until I run out.
What was it like in Sullivan County when you came there?
You know, it's a really good question. It was part of my decision-making process in that I had been here to visit for extended periods of time, sometimes weeks at a time, repeatedly. And I remember noting to my friend who was living here, I had a summer place here, and to people I was meeting that I had never once encountered any weirdness at all wherever I found myself, either in New York or Pennsylvania, where just me being Jonathan. And, you know, I'm kind of chatty, and I make it known that I'm in the room as a general rule. If I walk into a store or I'm at an event or what have you, it's just, I don't need the attention, but it pursues me. So I made a mental note that nobody had ever looked at me cross-eyed. And I discovered A Day to Be Gay. Remember A Day to Be Gay?
Oh my gosh.
They're not around anymore, but that was an organization way back in the day. There was a group of the gays. I think there were a couple of lesbians in the group as well, who were at the forefront of making themselves visible here in Sullivan County. And they had a festival every year called A Day to Be Gay in the Catskills.
I love
and it was a big,
I know,
big
right?
festival. I went to that and said, oh, I can do this. If they can do this, I can live here. And I never looked back. I've never, ever, ever encountered any kind of homophobia in my life here. But I walk the line, you know, I do. Farmers, it's because of Dharma. Everybody loves Dharma. So they're like, oh, he's gay, but it's okay. He's got that dog, you know.
That's funny, Jonathan.
Is that the key? Because
I actually, Wendy, in all seriousness, I had somebody years ago say to me, somebody I had gotten to know a little bit, and they took me aside. I think we were at an art gallery reception, and I was taking pictures and making notes. And somebody said, you know, can I ask you something personal? I said, well, okay. Can I not answer it? And they said, well, sure. And he said, it was a man, and he said, I heard a rumor about you, and I can't believe it's true. So without hearing it, I said, well, whatever it is, I could pretty much guarantee that it is true. So hit me with your best shot. And he said, I heard that you were gay. I said, well, that is true. That is 100% accurate. And he said, I never would have known. And I remember I was a little taken aback. And I said, you know, you say that as if that's some sort of compliment, that some kind of medal to wear. Nobody ever knew. I said, I don't take that as a compliment, and I don't know what you mean. And I'm not shying away from anybody. And he said, well, I've never known anybody gay. I said, well, let me stop you right there.
yes, you have.
You definitely have. Maybe that kid you slept with at boys camp. But regardless, you've known gay people, but we come in all shapes. We come in all sizes.
Thank
we come in
you.
all colors. This was 100 years ago before it was PC to be PC, because now I don't want to be, of course. But
Right.
I said, rest assured. He said, well, I like you. I said, you can like me and have me still be gay all at the same time, because that's not changing. So we can like each other. We can be friends.
Right. That story really sums it up. But you're right. It is very gay friendly. We heard that from Roswell and Johnny when they were on the show, and the Stick It In, because we asked them that question as well. And that's really great to know. You know, the next going forward, we're all in this. We've all been. This pandemic thing is just freaking huge. It's time to pull out all the walls and divisions that are out there. And you know what? We got to get to the other side of this. One of the things I love that you do, Jonathan, as a photographer, your photography, your nature photography is just superb. Stephen, I don't know if you saw this, but on Jonathan's page, he puts up not a COVID picture.
Nothing to do with COVID. Pick of the day.
To do with COVID.
I
And
love
he posts this a lot, and they're really beautiful nature pictures. You know.
Thank you. I discovered photography late in life and completely by accident, because I was working at the Democrat, and I had already worked for magazines, and I had worked as a freelance writer in Los Angeles, as I explained already. And so when I got here, in my first job with the town crier, and then which then became part of the Democrat, they assigned me a story, and I said, okay, I need a photographer to, meet me there. And everybody in the room just kind of turned and looked at each other. And
they were laughing.
I said, what's so funny? And they said, you don't get a photographer. You're in Sullivan County. You got to take pictures. I said, I'm not a photographer. I'm a writer. And they said, well, you better figure it out. And a time I got a camera this big, and I went out and started taking pictures. And, the groundbreaking of Bethel Woods. I mean, I've been here that long before there was a Bethel Woods, of course, and now it's a big part of my life. I started taking pictures, and every week I'd hand stuff in, and every week my editor would say, well, the copy's okay. The writing's not bad, but the pictures are horrible. And I'd say, well, I'm not a photographer. I'm a writer. And again, I was reminded that I had better pull my act together and be able to do both. So I took a course at SUNY Sullivan, a Digicam course.
I love this.
And I started taking pictures, and I live in a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place, right? We live in the most glorious surroundings here.
We
in
do.
The Catskills, and I'm in the Sullivan Catskills, of course, but everywhere. I love Milford, Pennsylvania so much, I can't even tell you. So
Well, Jonathan, I got to tell you, some of your most gorgeous stuff, I really hate the cold. Everybody knows this. The snow's beautiful to look at if I'm sitting inside. Some of your most beautiful photographs are of the snow.
Thank you. I have my shrink to thank for that, because he said, just embrace it. Just embrace it. And the way for me to get through a season like this was the worst winter we've had in 34 years. But the snow would start coming down, and I'd grab my now $3,000 camera and my lenses and decide what lenses I'm going to use. And I'd go out there and take pictures of icicles and snow and deer and snow. And I found that I really, I have an untapped, unknown about passion for photography that now fulfills me in so many ways. I can't even begin to describe to you how happy it makes me to have become late in life the photographer. So I never leave the house. The only difference between a professional and an amateur is a professional always has his camera. And I never leave the house without my camera. And I love photographing the world we live in.
Yeah.
People, places, and things. I do. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, definitely seen and noted. So I would like to talk about, so you actually do have an assistant. Her name is Dharma.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know, but I really want to share this with people, how the beautiful Dharma came into your life.
Dharma is a miracle in my life. Well, she just picked her head up when I said her name.
Hi, Dharma.
There she is. Say hi.
Look at that face. Hi, Dharma.
First of all, just for everybody who's looking, saying what a cute dog, Dharma is a Havanese. She's a purebred Havanese. I've had dogs my whole life. I've never had a purebred before. The Havanese are the national dog of Cuba. It literally means Little Havana. And they were bred about 150 years ago, none of which I knew. I had never heard of them until she came into my life. About 150 years ago, the Havanese were bred specifically to be companion dogs, especially for children. And so they bred out everything but these amazing, they look like stuffed animals.
They do.
They're small dogs, they're hypoallergenic, they're non-shedding, and the magic that is Dharma, of course, and what you are referring to is that Dharma is a seizure alert dog. I have a form of epilepsy. I wasn't born with it. I had a severe brain injury many years ago, which caused this form of epilepsy. And I do have seizures, petit mal and grand mal seizures, and it really impacted my life for a long period of time. In the last 15 years or so, a lot of work has been done with dogs on some amazing levels. And it came to my attention about 12, 13 years ago that there was such a thing as a seizure alert dog. And what Dharma is a scent alert dog. She's smelling my epilepsy. She's smelling my seizures. What happens is prior to a seizure, I see Stephen nodding, I secrete a chemical in my head that the dog can smell. She can smell my brain chemistry changing. I don't know what's happening. I have no idea that a seizure is coming on, but she knows a good 15 minutes or so in advance because she smells that change. And it takes a little while to flood my brain cavity and cause me to fall down and go boom. So what Dharma went to school for, she went to a specialized school with diabetes alert dogs.
Yeah.
And cancer sniffing dogs who can literally smell cancer cells.
Isn't that amazing?
She was trained to alert me to that change in my brain chemistry happening. And she was highly trained. And then she went to school at about 14 weeks old. And we've been together ever since she graduated. It didn't take very long. And she's been with me ever since. And she gave me the freedom to live a normal life, which I was not feeling at all. By that point, I'd gone about 7 years without a seizure alert dog. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue living my life that way
because you never knew when you were going to have a seizure.
I was on medication all of the time. That's really what it was about. 24/7. I was on brain medication, and brain medication really kind of messes you up in the head a little bit, I'll say, to be clean. And it was horrible. And Dharma freed me from that. And I only take medication at night, so I don't have a seizure in my sleep. People have had night seizures, and they suffer. Some people have smothered because of that. And Dharma would always be on alert if my brain wasn't functioning properly at night.
Right.
So before I go to bed, I take medication so both of us can sleep. And I'm knocking on wood. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had a grand mal seizure, a long time.
Amazing story. And
Jonathan, what happened? So Dharma alerts you and then you just wait for the storm, or do you?
No. Once she alerts me, first of all, I'm not very bright. So she has 3 different alerts. She starts just by patting my back. And Stephen, you've probably seen, sometimes I carry her around with me in a little doggy sling at my side. When I'm working, when I have the camera in my hand and I'm working, she's right there at my side in a sling. It's called a puppy sling. So the first thing she'll do is reach out and just pat my wrist when she's in the sling. If she's on the ground, she'll pat my ankle. But when I'm talking to you two and I'm really involved, I'll say, oh, just a minute, Dharma, I'll be right there. Hang on a minute. So she's got her head up right here. And so I sometimes ignore her because I'm not very bright. So then her second alert, she gets out her little toenail and scritches me with it, because that feels a little bit different than just patting at me, whereas I might mistake it for bumping into something. I'm so stupid that I still say, even after 11 years, I'm like, Dharma, hang on, I'm talking to Wendy. And then she puts her teeth right on me like so.
It's incredible.
She doesn't sink her teeth into me, but she does not let go. So if she's behind me in the chair on the couch, watching TV or something, she'll go for my neck. If she's on the ground, she does that at my ankle. And right now she's at my side, and she'll go for my arm and say, dude, you got to stop everything you're doing.
Yeah.
And focus on me for a minute. And I have medication that I can take, which will stave off. I have to sit down. I have to pull off the road if I happen to be driving when something like that happens. I wasn't allowed to drive for a long, long period of time until I could go a certain period of time without having any seizures at all. And I was given my driving privileges. So she's everything. Like her on Facebook, follow her on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Dharma the Wonder Dog. She's a huge social media sensation, and she's got more friends on social media than I do.
There you go.
Well, I loved it. I went onto Dharma's page and it comes up with these messages. What? How can I help you? It was like all these different things. I was like, we don't even do that at Triversity. Dharma has got us beat.
I can't take any of the credit for it. She has an iPod and she uses that. She has an iBone. She doesn't need me. I just pay the bill when it comes once a month. She takes care of herself. People say to me all the time, why does she talk in that weird accent? I say, why are you asking me?
Ask Dharma. Wow.
Dharma.
Stephen, do we have some questions from the audience for Jonathan? Any comments?
I don't know.
I can't imagine that you would.
No, there wouldn't be any questions. I think you've told us.
I will say that in case anybody thinks I'm just being snotty, and I have been called Jack Nicholson to the Catskills because I'm wearing sunglasses. I have an eye injury. I'm not trying to look like old Hollywood. I can't help. But I have an eye injury, and that's why I'm wearing darkened glasses at the moment.
They look great.
I look devastatingly handsome, don't I?
No, of course you do.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I wanted to find out, what has changed in your life during the pandemic? What's different? Because when I was thinking about you, you're a writer. You still write. You go out and take pictures. I know a lot of what you do by yourself.
Yes.
What you do, but of the events and all the other things, I'm curious. What's so different in Jonathan's life now?
Yeah, I spend my life covering the world of arts and entertainment here in the region, and for a year there have not been any events to go to take pictures of or to write about. And, you know, I mean, I locked myself into my house. March 12th was a year. And on March 12th, I wrote a column called 525,600 Minutes to mark the year. Of course, taken from the song Seasons of Love from Rent. I wrote a column about the fact that I'd been home for a year and not doing exactly what you're talking about. So even though I'm not really a glass half full kind of guy ever, I tend to look at the darker side of things. But gun to head, what have I done the last year? First of all, I sound insincere because I never say nice things about anybody ever. But I feel very fortunate that the powers that be at Stuart Communications and the River Reporter have always had my back. And they've given me a very wide berth to do what it is that I do and what I care about so much. But again, taking away that world from me, I still had to sit down and write a column every week of every month for a year. And I was given the opportunity to dig a little deeper because I said, well, I didn't go to Bethel Woods this week. What am I going to write about? Well, you know what? Remember that time I went to Ivan Torres' studio and met Flipper in 1969? And my boss let me do that.
Right.
And as a result, I honestly feel, I don't even care if anybody agrees, that I've written some of the best stuff I've ever produced in my whole life because it allowed me to go outside my normal box and just kind of spread my wings a little bit, to add yet another metaphor. But it really gave me an opportunity, and the River Reporter gave me an opportunity to just kind of do what I wanted to write about. And it turns out that the readership could relate to those things.
Totally. Because they weren't going out to entertainment either. What you did is you expanded your platform, which is really incredible during this time.
So, Jonathan, I have a question. I mean, I think of myself and when I write, and I love my final drafts, but I'm not too keen on getting there. I mean, what is your process like? Do you just start writing? Is it like discipline to get started? How does this work?
Well, that's a good question, and I appreciate you asking. And the only way I could have done what it is that I have done for 30 years now is deadlines. Because I could be the queen of procrastination, and I've written a lot of things that are just sitting around in piles in my office downstairs that have either never been completed or I've never. I remember at a point saying, "Oh, I don't care what you think." The first time I sold a big story years ago in LA to somebody, and the story was I was entering a short story contest for Coleman, I think, camping, and I wrote a fun story about camping, and I won the contest. This was years and years ago. It gave me a little, push to say, well, I guess maybe I could do this. So I won the contest, and I won a contract with a publishing company at that time. And I started working with the editor of whatever magazine it was 1,000 years ago. And she said, well, we've got 3,500 words and we have to cut it down to, 1,200. And I don't even know. Can I say whatever I want to on your show?
Go for it.
So I said, blow me. I said, blow me.
Well, there you go.
So I didn't know this woman, and she didn't know me, and she said, I need you to cut it. And I said, blow me. I like all the words, I said.
I like all the words. I love that.
And she said, well, we like them too, but we have to, fit it into this particular format. So I started working with her, and it was really a learning curve experience for me of working with a succession of, I've had some wonderful, wonderful editors over the years, and I don't think I could do it without them because, as you know, I kind of have diarrhea in the mouth. So that happens on the keyboard as well. I just keep writing.
Keep writing.
And, my discipline, if I have one at all, is that I've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I've been working in this business long enough where they say, well, I've got my own page now. I'm very fortunate. I'm such a big deal. I've got my own page. So it doesn't even matter if there's people claw to advertise anywhere near my writing, as you are well aware. But I'm lucky that I get to do that. But I'm given a certain amount of words. And that changes. 1 week, my editor might call me and say, well, we've got some room in the paper. Go crazy. And I might write 1,500 words on the subject. I never write under 750, but it has to be written and done by a certain time. That's the secret to my
The
getting anything
deadline.
done ever. It had, and all the work I've done, all the freelance I've done, I've written for magazines like the Jewish Journal. I wrote for a long, long time. I wrote for Green Door magazine. Remember them, Wendy?
Yeah.
I've written for Music Row, a huge country music magazine. I've been lucky enough to write for a couple of major Vogue magazine. You've probably heard of that. The only way I can get away with it is by having a deadline and having to have the work, because I will procrastinate a lot if given the opportunity.
Stephen, you need to like incorporate Siri into all of this, right? And
Well, that's the name of my new show. My new one-man show.
Words.
That's the name of my new show. It's called.
Well, there you go.
It's got Siri, it's got Alexa and the Google. They're all in my new show.
Yeah, the whole, all of those. By the way, I want to give a shout out. Jasmine is watching right now, so thank you for tuning in tonight. Very cool.
Jasmine's watching. Hi, Jasmine. That's great. Your audience is far and wide. That's fantastic.
So, Jonathan, I have a question from you from Simone, and Simone asked, which column, for my humble opinion, do you think was your funniest, and which one was the most controversial?
Oh, great question, Simone. Thank you.
Thanks, Simone. Put me on the spot. I will say, I mean, I love the fact that Simone thinks something is funny, and that's great. I honestly, I never sit down and say I'm going to make people laugh. If people laugh over what I've done, that's a fantastic bonus. And I am a humorist at heart, but I write serious things as well. So Simone's question is, what do I think is the funniest? Oh, good Lord. I don't know. I'm a freaking laugh riot, and I've written thousands of columns. So I would say you'd have to go back and look at the archives and make that decision yourself. But by all means, follow me on social media, and you can weigh in on that. What was the second part of Simone's question?
Controversial. What's the most controversial then?
Oh, controversial.
That's an easier one for you.
Controversial. Well, yeah. I mean, I've stepped over a couple of lines. You know, I don't know that I don't use the word proud, so I'm not really proud of anything. Pride goeth before a fall, they say. So I'd never say I'm proud of something I've done. But I like some things more than others.
Okay.
I hate a lot of what I've done, and I like some of it. Okay. Controversial. You know, we were talking earlier. I did publicly write about a closeted Hollywood actor boyfriend that I had. We were a secret item for a very long time.
So you
and he was on a television show. At that time, he was on. Not only was he on a television show and a teen heartthrob, and 20 years younger than me, but he was absolutely not out as a gay person, and still is not. The only difference is that I can talk about it because it made national headlines when we were outed by the National Enquirer. And his name is Barry Watson. He's a fantastic guy. He certainly does not identify as gay. Absolutely not. If he had, I wouldn't have liked him to begin with. And that's not how our friendship really began, just as a friendship. We played cards together, and he was on a show called Seventh Heaven. So it was about a preacher and his kids, and it was a #1 ABC drama, and Aaron Spelling produced it because he came after me pretty hard. And it happens that somebody betrayed me. Somebody in my camp betrayed me, went to the National Enquirer, outed Barry, and the headline said, Seventh Heaven hunk has a secret, and the secret was me. And not only that, they had pictures, and there was really no denying, even though we were like, deny. And sadly, you know, it ended my friendship more than anything else, my relationship with Barry. But I did write about it, and it was controversial. So that might be the clearest version of that. And it was sad. I mean, I know where Barry is now and what he's doing now. But I remember, I mean, the National Enquirer found my mother in Florida. They found my sister in Canada. They paid neighbors of mine in Santa Monica to say, oh, yeah, I see his car here all the time. Or, yeah, I know him. And, yeah, I see him going in and out of the house and what have you. The National Enquirer did their job, and they did it really, really well.
Meanwhile, we put Stormy
we were hiding.
Right.
We really had to hide, and so I knew what it was like. I understood what it was, because they called me an older homosexual, an older actor. They called me, An
God.
older homosexual actor.
Older homosexual actor. There you go.
Jonathan.
Well, better than my ex. His mother called me a venom-spewing cobra Jew boy. And I told her I was going to have that embroidered on a pillow. I'm big on having things embroidered on pillows. Venom-spewing cobra Jew boy, when she accused me of making her son gay, and I assured her that he was that way when I found him. But that has nothing to do with Barry and that story. But my point is that at the end of the day, after all this time in a deep friendship, and I still love him, he said to me, we were with a couple of other people who are extremely well known, playing cards. One of them, his name rhymes with Brad Pitt. The other one's name rhymes with George Clooney because Barry did Ocean's 12 with these guys and we all played cards.
Oh my
together.
God.
Oh, cool.
And they were right there when all this hoopla happened, and it was decades ago and nobody cares now. But he turned to me and said, thanks for not taking the money. Thanks for not giving in to them. And I was dumbfounded. I was absolutely dumbfounded that thought would even occur to him. And I pushed my chair back. We were in his house in Topanga Canyon. I pushed my chair back and said, excuse me a minute. And I got up and I walked down. So I grabbed that dog, walked downstairs, walked out the door, got into that truck, and I drove home and I never saw him again.
Wow.
We spoke afterwards, maybe once or twice.
End of story.
End of story, because I was really crushed that
He would
could
think
even
that.
entertain that thought that I would sell him down the river,
Well,
down the river.
Jonathan, what a life. I'm calling this segment Full Circle with Jonathan Charles Fox. Really incredible. Do you have something you'd like to tell our audience? You can say anything you want right now.
Anything I want right now. First of all, I'd like to thank you both for asking me to do this, which I didn't want to do, as you know, and really had no desire. And even though I was making fun of it, I'm like, did I tell her I would do this? Why did I say?
Yeah, you did from the time I spoke to you. Yes,
obviously I said yes at the time. But I'm mercurial, if nothing else, and I don't remember anything because I smoke so much pot, it's insane. So unless I write it down, we're screwed. But you're very good at keeping on top of everything. I've had such a good time, and I really appreciate that. And I'm a big fan of Triversity, as you know. And there's nothing really that I wouldn't do to help you guys out when it comes to publicizing. I have gotten behind you guys a couple of times as far as trying to bring Triversity and its message across to the general public, because I do have a somewhat wide and dedicated readership, I'm happy to say. And I do feel like I'm a small part of the fabric of this community, and that includes the LGBT community. Absolutely, because I'm out and proud, even though I don't like the gays. I keep saying that. I'm going to get hate mail. I don't love the gays. I mean, there's not that there's anything wrong with it, but
I'm typing some right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, and surely I jest. I guess what I'd like to say in closing, on a more serious note, is that I care a great deal about my community, and Triversity is a part of that community. I care a great deal about my community. I feel a certain sense of responsibility as far as making other people comfortable with that community. I think I'd like to think that that's part of my job. It does come up once in a while, and people say, "Oh, I know, I recognize you." Even the radio station, I'm on Thunder 102 now, more than a decade. And I remember a long, long time ago, somebody from Bold Gold Media coming up to me and saying, just at an event, we were at a big event, and he just kind of sidled up behind me and said, "I want to thank you for representing." And because I'm kind of the gay caballero on Thunder 102, so I don't know. I don't think I have a responsibility, but I don't shy away from who I am or where I came from or where I'm going. And so that's cool. I'm okay with that. He even said to me, he followed it by saying, there are gay cowboys out there. I said, really? I had no idea there were gay cowboys out there. Get thee to a rodeo, sir. So,
right.
I mean, in all seriousness, I feel very fortunate. I really do. I love where I live. I care a great deal about the community that I live in and amongst, and that I actively participate in. And that's all good. Most of the time, I'm just cracking wise about it. So you give me an opportunity once in a while to take a look at the man behind the curtain. And there is a man behind the curtain.
There is a man behind the curtain.
It's a beautiful brocade curtain. That's the only difference.
We did find that out tonight. There is a man behind the curtain. Jonathan, your social media handles, where can people find you? Website, all that stuff.
Well, and I just started a YouTube channel. So thank you so much for asking. I accidentally started a YouTube channel. We don't have time to talk about how it happened, but it did. And it's oddly enough called Jonathan Charles Fox. That's my name, Wendy Stuart Kaplan. That's my name. Not only is it my name, it's my brand, because there are other Jonathans out there. There are other Foxes out there. There are even other Jonathan Foxes out there, but there's only one Jonathan Charles Fox on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Jonathan Fox IMHO, because I had to get my humble opinion out there. And on Instagram, of course, I'm at Jonathan Charles Fox. And please, by all means, follow me. Subscribe to my channel on
I'm going to go do that right now.
I want to become the Kim Kardashian of the Catskills, and that's going to take some cheddar.
Okay, yeah, and some plastic surgery and cosmetics. A butt lift for sure.
I need a neck lift first. I was going to use the duct tape tonight, and I forgot.
Yeah, right. No.
That's why I do a lot of this. It's youthful.
I know that trick. Jonathan,
sure
thank you so very much. Dharma, thank you. Stephen, thank you.
Yes, and thank you everyone for watching, and we will
see
you next week.
See you all next week.